Everyone says you don't need an expensive camera to get great photos and videos. So I took out a used, inexpensive flagship camera and wanted to see what we could get for results in photos and video. Of course, what qualifies as low budget really kind of depends on what you have for a budget, but I think this camera represents a great value regardless. This is an Olympus OM-D E-M1 Mark III. And the short answer is yes, I did get some great photos and video. With a few predictable caveats, this is a wonderful camera. We'll look at some photo and video examples after I talk about some standout features. Flagship cameras get all of the best a camera company can throw at them. They get the best sensors, best processing, and best focusing systems they have. In the spring of 2020, this camera was the best camera that Olympus could make. At the time, this competed really well with other flagship cameras. The 1DX Mark III and Nikon's D6 both had 20 megapixel sensors just like this camera. Since this camera came out 6 years ago, I'm not going to go over a ton of features, but there are a few standout ones that I'd like to mention. One, this thing is legendary in weather sealing. It's a really durable camera. Plus, it has 7 stops of internal IBIS, so it's a really great handheld in low light camera, and you get another half stop if you use one of their Sync IS lenses. The camera shoots 18 frames a second with autofocus and 60 without, and its focusing system is so good it can focus on the night sky. Before we look at some examples, I did go out recently and take a look for what these are trading for online from big dealers that have warranties with their equipment. And it looks like they're trading for about $750, give or take, in pretty good condition. I got a great deal on mine. It was only about $500, but it does have some wear and tear. I took the camera out a few times over the last week or so, and I shot on lenses ranging from very affordable to professional. As soon as I had this in my hands, I noticed a feature that people are either going to love or hate. This thing is really small. Unlike a Canon 1DX Mark III or a Nikon D6, this thing doesn't have a vertical grip. So as long as you use it horizontally, it's not too big a deal. If you don't shoot a ton vertically, might be okay. But if you shoot a lot like this, you might want to add, there is an optional add-on grip that'll give you that vertical functionality. With the smaller body comes a smaller battery. While those other flagship cameras have giant, long-lasting batteries that let you shoot for a really long time, this one's CEPA rated at 450 shots. That said, the first day I went out, I shot over 1,500 shots and didn't have a problem. As a matter of fact, I had about a half a battery left. The first examples are shot on a Panasonic 200mm f2.8. This young white-tailed deer buck was walking along the side of the road with a friend and paused and took a look at me, which was great. Got this fantastic shot from fairly close. And the detail here is really impressive. You can see blood vessels in the ears, reflections in the eyes, lots of detail in the fur. This was fairly early in the evening, and this shot to me looks pretty darn good. The photo was taken with an ISO of 640, 1/1000th of a second shutter speed, and f2.8. It wasn't moving very fast, so I didn't have to crank up the shutter speed, and I'm happy with what I got. This next shot is a great blue heron shot midday. It had just jumped out of the tree that you see behind it. The ISO is 320 with an f-stop of 3.2 and 1/3200th of a second shutter speed to make sure I froze any motion. Cropped in just a little bit on this. And again, we've got great color, great detail. Despite the harsh light, I really like this photo. And I got a whole series of these. The tracking system kept up with the bird really well. I only had one that wasn't perfectly tack sharp out of a whole series. This next shot is of a wild turkey. It was moving along in little bursts. Took the photo at ISO 1000, 1/1250th of a second at f3.2. There's no noise reduction on this shot. At ISO 1000, I think it looks clean enough. And the tracking system did a great job of not grabbing onto the grass in the foreground and staying with the turkey. A criticism that gets mentioned frequently when we talk about Micro Four Thirds sensors is that they are a little noisier than their full frame or APS-C counterparts. And that is true. Most of the time, that doesn't bother me. I'm a child of the film era, so a little bit of grit and grain, as long as it doesn't distract from the image, doesn't bother me. But on those images that were really high ISO, and I shoot a lot of wildlife, and a lot of that doesn't come out until really close to sunset, so that does happen from time to time. When I had those images, I used my favorite denoising tool, which is found inside of DxO Photo Lab. This is a great piece of software, and I am an affiliate with them, just so you know. I did a full review on their software, and I will leave a link to that in the description below. One of the reasons I love this software company is that you can go try this software for free for 30 days with no technical limitations. It's everything that you get in the paid version for 30 days, absolutely free. I encourage you to check it out. It really blew my mind at how well it denoised and maintained detail. If you decide to pick their software up using my discount code MAC, which will appear on the screen here, we'll get you a 15% discount. I do get a little kickback for that, but it doesn't cost you anything more. Enough about software. Let's get back to looking at images. This next shot I did use noise reduction on. I was really walking back to my car and was done shooting for the evening and walked around the corner, and in the shade of some trees was this cute little scene of a little doe and its mother, and the mother is preening its child. Thought it was really cute. The ISO is 6400, and with this small sensor and this age of camera, that is kind of noisy. But in post, it cleaned up really well, and I think there's tons of detail left. It's kind of a cute scene. And the final example from this lens is this frog. I almost walked past it. It was hiding in some duckweed. I did crop in just a little bit on this. The 200-2.8 is a good telephoto lens, but if you can't get super close, sometimes you do have to crop. This was shot at ISO 1000 and 1/4000th of a second. That shutter speed was kind of a mistake. I hadn't turned it down from photographing birds earlier. But the detail in the eye here is fantastic. And anybody who says you can't blur the background with micro four thirds needs to look at that duckweed right behind the frog. Quite blurry. This next set of images was shot on a 300mm f4 Pro from Olympus. I borrowed this lens and I wish I owned it. It is gorgeous. And it doesn't do too bad at faking a macro. It doesn't do one-to-one reproduction, but with larger insects like this dragonfly, it does just fine. I did use noise reduction on this image, just a little bit to clean up the background. I had to shoot it at ISO 4000, f4.5, and 1/1000th of a second. And we cropped in just a bit. Beautiful color. Dragonflies are a pain to catch because they zip in and out of focus all the time, but the tracking system did a good job and stayed with the part that I wanted. Punching in just a little bit by cropping. You can see there's a lot of detail in the eyes. For a lens that is not a dedicated macro, I was really impressed, and the focusing system, the camera did a great job. It's our first video example of the day. It was getting dark, so I switched to video where I could use a slower shutter speed and got some good footage of this great blue heron, which I think looks fantastic. Walking out in a darker part of the preserve, saw this little bullfrog. Again, it's a little gritty from the higher ISO, but I think it looks good enough. Back to photos. Saw this beautiful little butterfly. This was really small. And again, I cropped a little bit on this, but not a ton. This lens just did a really good job. The beautiful blue in that eye, the green of the foliage, and the white of the rest of the butterfly is really striking. Cropping in a little bit, you can see how much detail I got in the eye. I'm really impressed with this. And the last example with this lens is this picture of a frog. ISO is 1000, 1/200th of a second to make up for the fact that it was getting kind of dark, and shot at f4. I did use some noise reduction. I'm not sure I needed to because there's a lot of detail here that I think would hide the little bit of noise that was there, but there was some, so I went ahead and cleaned it up just a bit with a tiny bit of noise reduction. And onto a lens that's really affordable compared to those other two. This photo and the video to follow are shot with the Olympus 75-300. It is pretty affordable on the used market. This first shot is an Oriole shot at 1250 ISO at f7.1 and 1/160th of a second at 300mm. These Orioles are a pain to photograph because they zip from branch to branch. Just about the time I point a lens at it, they move. This one was a little farther away. I was happy that such a slow shutter speed managed to get a fairly sharp shot. The camera did a really good job of locking on quickly and letting me get this shot off. And this is a video I shot last winter with that same lens. Saw some little muskrats playing at their lodge. Kind of a cute scene. This is an inexpensive lens and I get mixed results with it, but this shot was really good. I had a ton of fun taking this out over the last week and really putting it through its paces. All cameras have their pros and cons. All camera systems have their pros and cons. One of the things I love about Micro Four Thirds is that it's a multi-company system. It's not just Olympus. There's a lot of companies involved making cameras and lenses, so you have tons of choices for the next piece of gear that you need. Another great benefit of this system and all Micro Four Thirds cameras is that lenses scale with the size of the sensor. So since the sensor's smaller, the lenses can be smaller, and equivalent focal lengths on a Micro Four Thirds camera are generally cheaper, smaller, and easier to carry than their full frame counterparts. For example, the 300mm f4, that I was carrying around. I think its list price is around 3,600. Usually you can get it a little cheaper than that. Well, full frame equivalent is well over 10,000 from most of the big brands. So while neither are cheap, I'd rather spend 3 or 4,000 than 10 or 15. Now, no camera is without its flaws. And we already kind of mentioned high ISO noise as being one for this system. And that is true. While I can reduce it in post, it is an additional step. So if you want to avoid that, maybe that's not the camera for you. The other main drawback that I found with this camera is that while its focusing system was really good for its time, things like subject detection have really made autofocus wonderful. Uh, my current Sony camera has bird detection, which is just wonderful for doing wildlife stuff. And this camera does not have any of that. It tracked really well given its era, but if you're used to subject tracking or want that, it's not here. Back to the original question, do you need an expensive camera to take great pictures, or will a camera like this do the job for you? I think it kind of depends on what kind of photography you're doing. But in my opinion, a camera that was amazing 5, 6, 7 years ago probably didn't stop being amazing. May not compete perfectly with a newer camera, but if you can get it at a great price, I think there's some great deals out there. I really enjoyed this camera. I think I got some fantastic photos. What do you think? Do you need an elite camera to get great photography? I'd love to hear your comments in the comment section below. And if you have any questions, leave them there as well. Good luck in your art journey, and I'll see you next time.